No, I'm not yet. No, we're going to stream.
Put it on our website tomorrow.
Okay, we'll call to order this meeting of the Winters City Council for Tuesday, May the 15th.
Oh, sorry.
Roll call, Nancy.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Biazzi.
Here.
Lauren. Here. New.
Here.
Mayor Cowan.
Here. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. Wally Pierce, will you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, approval of the agenda. John?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, staff's just recommending just a little bit of reordering. If after the consent calendar, if we can just move the discussion item number 1 up to before the presentations tonight, and just so everybody knows, staff will be pulling item C from the consent calendar, and we'll bring that back.
And that'll come back to us later.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll come back at the next meeting.
I move that we approve the agenda with changes.
I'll second.
Okay. A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, council comments. Councilmember Lauren.
Good evening. May 8th, I met with Winters Healthcare Foundation with the Elder Day Committee to work on Elder Day, which is June 2nd. Elder Day is just going to be a great event. I also attended the car show. On May 9th, I attended a press conference at the state capitol regarding disaster preparedness funding, mutual aid, and fire response resources with an ask of $100 million from the governor. On May 10th, I attended Poetry Out Loud at Berryessa Gap. On May 11th, I attended the League of California Cities Sacramento Regional Quarterly Meeting in Grass Valley. On May 14th, I had a pre-planning meeting with Don Saylor for a meeting that was held today. And today I met with the district, the city supervisor Saylor, Mayor Cowan, the city manager to look into pursuing a college promise program for the city of Winters. And also today I met with John Dunleavy about today's agenda. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Last night I attended the Yolo County Transportation District meeting in Woodland, and there was quite a lengthy discussion about the new carrier for the district. More to be continued. That's all I got.
Okay. Councilmember New.
On May 3rd, I attended the SACOG Land Use and Natural Resources meeting. Several things that we went over, mainly about how to handle different sections of development. On May 7th, Habitat Conservancy meeting, which was something that we could get ready for this evening. On the 8th was car show. On the 9th, YOLO Housing board met, and we honored several, one of our board members who was retiring from the board. On the 12th of the garage sale, and then on the 14th, I met with Mike McCoy and Molly DiAgostino, and went to the Institute for Transportation Studies, and talked about what kinds of things we might be able to do here in Winters. And I actually went trying to convince them they should do a study here in Winters, and they didn't say they would, but they didn't say they wouldn't either. So they may have some graduate students that will be coming to town. That's it.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi.
Thank you, Mayor. On May the 7th, I attended Yocha Dihi Community Fund Partners Luncheon up there. They honor all the
the groups that they've so graciously donated money to over the last year, and Winters was a recipient of some of that money. On the 11th, I attended the chamber board meeting. I was at the car show on the 8th. Discussed the agenda and a few other items with the city manager on the 14th, and also on the 14th, I attended the chamber mixer at Three Palms Nursery.
Okay, I also attended the Yoshi-Dishi luncheon on the 7th with Mayor Pro Tem Biazzi, and also the chief was there, Hermosita, right? And Winters was a recipient on a couple of levels from Yoshi-Dishi in the past year, with $150,000 towards the park, and then also with some money to help fund the canine program, right? So they're always good to Winters. And then on the 10th, I attended the management staff meeting. And after that, I met with John and Shelley and Eric to discuss the sports park and the Stones Throw development again. And then after that, with Shelley and John to discuss some budget items. And then yesterday, I also attended the chamber mixer at Three Palms Nursery. And then, as Councilmember Lauren mentioned, I attended her College Promise Exploration meeting, which was very good. Good job on that.
Thanks.
And then this afternoon, just before the meeting, I was actually watching the high school baseball team, varsity team, play their first playoff game, which they won against Reading 8-2.
Good.
So they are now 29-1 on the season. And I believe they're playing for the section championship at Butte College on Saturday. So go Winters.
Yeah.
Don't forget, tomorrow afternoon, 3:30 to 5:30, is the dedication for Project Playground at the park. So it should be a good time. Thank everybody for all your hard work. And now we'll move on to the
Public comments?
Get myself back over here to public comment for items which are not listed on the agenda. Anybody from the public can address the council. And we have one here, Wally Pierce.
Good
Hello.
morning.
I've asked you two separate documents on World Elder Abuse Day. One is a draft proclamation, one's a synopsis on what that's all about. I know you guys are working with the AARP. This would be consistent with their platform. I really think it's important. The chief can attest to this. Elder abuse is alive and well in our community. I do a lot of work with the Yolo County District Attorney, Kevin Clark, and it is, unfortunately. I've also given you some numbers for Yolo County. Right now, we're about 43,000 older adults, 60 and older. By 2050, it's going to be 83,000. And those are low estimates. Those are conservative estimates. So the potential is there. And all we're asking is if you would adopt this proclamation, is that every June 15th from here and henceforth, that day would be recognized in this community as World Elder Abuse Day. And we just ask people if they want to recognize that day of the year, we're purple. Purple earring, purple nose ring, it doesn't really have a name, but some sense of purple. And there's a lot of folks in this community who appreciate that. And the last thing is, and I kind of dovetailed with Jesse. So we've been doing interviews for older adults, the elders in our community. And I talked to the gentleman today. He was a B-17 pilot. And his story is scary and it's fantastic. He also flew P-40s. And listen to this community, and a lot of you folks know, so I'm not going to delve into it too much, but he's just one of the folks we're going to recognize this year. So I want to thank you for the proclamation for Elder Day. And in talking with him, he's so proud to be recognized. He's going to bring his family and friends, and some of the folks we talked to about that day, they're really proud to be recognized. And I'll give you his words. At least somebody's thinking about him. So you guys, I really appreciate what you've done. And I do hope you'll adopt the proclamation. It's just a draft. You can use it verbatim or write it any way you want. But it's a start. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Wally. Is there anybody else that would like to address the council on non-agenda items? Okay, and we'll move on to the consent calendar, John.
And Mayor and Council, a couple of items. Item A are the minutes from the regular meeting on May 1st. Item B is a contract for us to submit our SB 90 state mandated reimbursement. This is a contract for that. Going to pull item C, and we'll bring that back to the council at the first meeting in June. Item D are our consultant services. Basically, those are the engineering costs for the design of the alleyway improvements and the parking lot that'll go adjacent to the hotel and directly across the street from City Hall. May 26th and 27th are going to be really fun. In Winters, those are 2 amplified sound permits for weddings and wedding rehearsals. And I would imagine if you go by, it's going to be fun. Item G is a street closure request for this coming Friday for Ivy Loop. Some kind of a party out there. And finally, item H is a reclassification of one of our positions. I bring this to the council simply because it does represent a modification to the overall staffing plan that was adopted in the city budget. I will tell you that the funds for this are included in the budget. It represents actually the final division within the Public Works Department for somebody going up to basically what it is a division manager for the facilities, and this will be for streets and parks. And that's the consent calendar.
Okay, before we vote on this, we need to note that Councilmember Anderson will not be voting on items D, E, and F due to conflict. Does anybody else have any conflicts with any items?
Oh, I probably have a conflict with G.
With G?
I
Is that
live,
within
am
your
I-
circle?
I don't think
No,
so. I think
no
it's too
problem.
far away.
No, I don't think so. Okay. All right, with that,
Move,
motion.
move we accept the consent calendar with the omission of item C.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries as stated. Okay, now we're gonna skip to our discussion item. Adoption of the Yolo Habitat Conservation Plan, Natural Community Conservation Plan. John, Heidi?
You know what, I'll kind of lead off. So when I was in high school, there was a class, there's a question in biology.
We're starting in high school?
It's gonna be a while.
I thought you had a time limit on
I'll
tonight.
get to the point. So there was a question of whether you could ever bring something back from ash. And tonight I get to introduce two of, I would describe them as probably two of the top professionals in what they do in Yolo County. The Yolo Habitat Conservancy, the HCP, I will tell you was so burned beyond recognition. But tonight, it gives me a great honor to introduce both Petrea Marchand and Heidi Schuden to talk about the final adoption of the Habitat Conservation Plan for Yolo County. So if anybody had told me 4 or 5 years ago that we'd be sitting here tonight, I would have told them they were crazy. So Petrea.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Brown, members of the council, Chair Marchand, Executive Director of the Yolo Habitat Conservancy, and Stoneset at Heidi Schuden here as our project manager as well. I'm thrilled, obviously, tonight to be here. It's been a lot of work on behalf of not just Heidi and I, but a large team of people at the Conservancy and our board of directors, and especially the representative Pierre New and former Representative Woody Friday as well. There's a lot of work for the board. I think one of the quotes at our last board meeting was, "This was not an easy board to be on." I know Jessie learned this, but alternate as well. She's had to pitch in as well. So I just want to say thanks up front for all that hard work over the years. I did tonight, for the benefit of the public, want to briefly provide an overview on the plan and the process that we went through to get to this point, but I promise I'll be brief because I know you've heard this from me before, and I'm also going to hit on some of the updates from the public review draft, which was the last time I was before you. So first of all, just a reminder that the Conservancy does include all 4 cities in the county, and UC Davis is an ex officio member. As a result of that, all the 4 cities in the county, as well as the Conservancy, are all permittees, so we all are sharing the responsibility for this plan over the next 50 years. As you recall, the HCP and CCP is 50-year permits under the State and Federal Endangered Species Act. It covers all of the development in your general plan, as well as the general plans for the county and the cities. The plan area is the county as a whole, covers about 19,000 acres of activity. And in return for that 19,000 acres of covered activities, we will be protecting 32,000 acres of habitat over 50 years. The majority of that will be on working agricultural land. So this plan really is the first time that a county has done a conservation plan that focuses on working lands. We expect it will be a model for other counties with an agricultural focus to follow in the future. 12 species that we cover are ones that you're familiar with: giant garter snake, burrowing owl, elderberry beetle, Swainson's hawk. Those are the ones that we've had the most mitigation issues with over the past, in the past, and so those will be the focus of the conservation strategy moving forward. This is a all-for-one permit, so if your project has mitigation responsibilities for multiple species that are covered by this plan, you only have to come to us for one permit and pay one fee, versus the old way of doing things, which was having to do it on a case-by-case basis for individual species. Priority conservation areas are along Pewter Creek, which I know is important to the city of Winters. So that will be a focus where we'll be spending resources, partnering with the Solano County Water Agency, as well as the old bypass and Cache Creek, and then also foraging habitat in between the cities, primarily irrigated hay and alfalfa row crops over the next 50 years. We will be conserving, like I said, about 32,000 acres. 8,000 of those are already conserved, and 8,000 will be newly protected lands that will secure funding for from state and federal grants, and about 17,000 acres will be for mitigation fees over 50 years. Covered activities fall into 5 major categories. Urban activities, which are ones you're familiar with, rural projects, and activities that include such things as bridges and rural roads. Our conservation strategy is a covered activity, so to the extent that we need to do restoration or other work, that's going to be covered by the permits. Operation and maintenance, we have some coverage for levee maintenance and canal maintenance, other things that come up in the course of public works projects. And then finally, at the request of the Yolo County Farm Bureau, we have a neighboring landowner program, which allows farmers who have a conservation easement next to them to apply for tape coverage if they're worried about enforcement activities on their property as a result of additional endangered species on their property. So that's it was very important to us to work very closely with the Farm Bureau and the agricultural community on this plan, and there's a number of elements in the plan that support continuing that partnership. The benefits of the HCP from a conservation perspective are you move away from parcel by parcel approach to conservation to a coordinated approach where we'll be focusing, like I said, efforts on Pewter Creek and Cache Creek and trying to protect land that's next to already protected lands to create areas of habitat conservation for the species that are covered by the plan. From a permitting perspective, as you know, if you needed to go to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the past, it would be a long process of running between agencies trying to reach agreement. That process is replaced by a step-by-step process that requires local agencies only to come to the Yolo Habitat Conservancy, and they apply through your planning department, so there won't be any change to the applicant in terms of who they're dealing with. They'll come to your planning department, but then your planning department will in turn coordinate with us to fill out the application, do some initial surveys, and then move forward with the project. As long as they don't need permits that are outside of our jurisdiction, like a 404 permit, they'll be able to move forward as soon as the Conservancy grants the coverage. And there will be no interaction with the state and federal government because the Conservancy is doing that on your behalf in the future.
What's a 404?
So that's my next slide. So
Okay.
404 permits are generally, and Heidi can probably provide a better definition, but it's when you affect the jurisdictional waters of the United States. And so it's an Army Corps of Engineers permit. That is not what we're offering. So I have been telling people for the last 6 years that, hey, just remember, if you need a 404 permit, that's separate from us. You're still going to have to go through this arduous process with a federal agency, right? I just found out in the last couple of weeks that while you do still have to go through that process, there are some benefits of having a habitat conservation plan, because when you apply for a 404 permit, if a Section 7 consultation is required under the Endangered Species Act, that consultation starts with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And what some of the applicants have told us over the last few weeks is that they have had to wait as long as 3 years for the service to initiate that consultation. When you have a habitat conservation plan, they use the biological opinion that they developed for our plan, and they can write a letter, a 2-page letter, to initiate consultation with the Corps, potentially saving a significant amount of time in your Corps process. So that was an unanticipated benefit from my perspective, but I double checked it with some other counties to make sure I wasn't over-promising, and they said that, and with the service staff themselves, and they confirmed that there can be some benefits in the 404 process.
And what kind of projects typically need a 404?
So anything that affects, like I guess, for example, the Vernal Pool
Right.
project.
I'll give you an example. Phase 3 of Puda Creek. 3 years ago, we met with Congressman Garamendi, and he told us that he was going to help them get right on it.
Yeah, and here we sit.
Yeah, but the permit that's required for Phase 3 is a 404 permit.
Okay. So things like our housing developments and stuff like that, they don't need 404s.
Sometimes they do.
Well, yeah, if they did, nothing that we're working on right now requires a 404.
Except for the work maker.
Yeah, and if they identified, I don't know if any future stuff would require a 404, but definitely Phase 3.
Okay.
So Heidi's reminding me that anything that affects our wetlands will trigger
Oh.
the 404. So over the course of the 50 years, it's $424 million total. A majority of that is coming from fees. Some of it's from state and federal funding. And then we also have the 3 local partnerships, as I've discussed with you in the past. One's with the county, one's with the city of Davis, and one's with the Solano County Water Agency. This isn't new costs. There's already costs incurred for mitigation, and this is replacing those costs. So it's not apples to apples because it's a different process, but I just want the council to be clear that this is not new money. It's replacing an old process where there was significant transaction costs associated with securing permits and mitigation, and this replaces that process. The fees for the plan, the base fee is $12,952 per acre. If you affect a wetland, we also can cover that, and those fees range from $57,000 to $79,000 an acre. And the reason is that we have to restore wetlands if you impact wetlands under the Endangered Species Act. And then we also have temporary effects fees, which are, for example, if PG&E has to dig out part of a parcel because they're installing a utility line, we can actually cover that activity and make sure that the project moves forward faster than it would be if they needed to get separate permits.
Okay, the standard fee for the $12,952. How does that compare to what people are paying now?
So I get that question a lot, and it goes back to that apples to apples comparison. You can't compare this fee to what people are doing now because it's so different on a project by project basis. So we cover all 12 species for that fee. So, and this also is going to reduce transaction costs. So there may be some cases in which if you just, for example, had to mitigate for Swainson's Hawk, where this fee could be higher. But we will never know what the transaction costs are for an applicant who has to pay for surveys or attorneys or other consultants that they will no longer need to employ when they use our process, which is a shorter and much streamlined process. So I can't give you an exact answer to that. I do know that, like, for example, if you had a project that affected Burrowing Owl, Swainson's Hawk, and Giant Garter Snake all together, it's almost, you won't have to go purchase credits from a mitigation date for Giant Garter Snake, Swainson's Hawk mitigation credits. You just pay one fee and you're done. And you're almost certain to save money under this process. But I can't, say to the council that in every single case, it's going to be cheaper than it would have been without the HCP. But and you also can't measure what the value of time savings are. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, but we expect in most cases there'll be cost saving.
And time savings.
And time savings, yes. That's right. And it'll be really, this is the other nice thing about having local control, is that you as elected officials serving on the board, will be, able to say to the Conservancy, fix this, move faster, this project needs help, versus having to make phone calls to the state and federal government. And hopefully you won't need to make those phone calls because we're a local agency, but we are going to be locally accountable. So I'll turn it over to Heidi here for a brief overview of the actions we're asking you to take tonight. Before she goes over these, I wanted to let you know, give you a brief update on what we have done since the public review period passed. As you know, we released the public review draft in June of last year. We had a 90-day public comment period. We had 9 public meetings. We gave other presentations when groups asked for us to give presentations. We updated the board at every meeting on the plan. We updated the advisory committees. We updated our website. We created outreach materials because this is a complicated plan that summarized the plan in both English and Spanish. Over the course of that 90 days, we received 32 comment submissions, and we responded to all of those comments in the EIS-EIR. So at this point, we are feeling really good about the hours that we had, the comments we got back, and the final plan that we're asking you to adopt tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Heidi.
I want to show you what it looks like.
Everybody's got their copy. If you can, pull out Appendix 1.
So this, let's see, these two are the EIS-EIR, and these two are the plan. And then you probably saw in your packet, the findings packet that goes with it is maybe another inch or two. I'm very pleased to be here. Heidi Chuden. I'm a contract land use planner, and I'm also the project manager for this project working with Petrea. I just want to spend a few moments talking about what we're asking from you this evening, since it is such a large packet. As Petrea explained, the Conservancy is the lead agency, and then each of the cities and the county are member agencies. And so as we move forward to secure these permits from the state and federal government, what is required of us, all of us as participants in this program, is to take specific actions related to the CEQA and NEPA component, depending on which agency we are, and then to actually adopt the plan. And then once all of us have done that, and so far the Conservancy has done that, and now you're second, and later tonight we'll go to the City of Davis, and we have all the member agencies after that. So after that happens, then our work at the local level is done. And the next few steps are the state and federal agencies doing similar processes, either under CEQA or NEPA, and then it culminates with the actual issuance of the take permits. So tonight, for the City of Winters as a member agency, you will be considering the EIR as informing, the EIS-EIR as informing your work. You're not required to certify it, it's already been certified by the Conservancy. So you'll consider that, and the first resolution that's in front of you this evening provides all of the background, findings, and support for your action to do that. And then the second resolution that's before you this evening will actually adopt the plan. It also certifies that the plan is consistent with your general plan, which is part of the analysis that we did with your staff. And it also authorizes your city manager to execute the implementing agreement. The implementing agreement is sort of like a partnership, is the way I look at it, of all of the member agencies and the lead agency and the wildlife agencies. Everybody's sort of signing on the dotted line that once those permits get issued, we're all going to abide by the rules of that book and implement what it says to implement. So it's like a participation agreement. And then you also have an ordinance in front of you this evening. That ordinance, and we're doing the introduction, waiving the first reading and receiving public comment on it. That ordinance, which is being adopted again by all the member agencies, essentially puts into place for you the procedures and protocols that will be necessary for you to implement the plan at your level. The last item that we're requesting of you is the execution of the first amended and restated joint powers agreement. And that's a cleanup to the joint powers agreement that's always been in place between all of the agencies of the Conservancy. This helps to transition from where we started, which was preparation of the plan many years ago, to now getting ready to implement the plan. So it makes sure that all the duties are clear. So what we've asked of you this evening is to receive our presentation, which I'm about to conclude, to accept any public comments, to adopt the 2 resolutions, the ordinance, and the action on the joint powers agreement, and then direct staff to file a notice of determination. And when the time comes, assuming that you're amenable to making those actions, you can do it all at once. You don't have to break it up. So with that, I conclude my remarks unless there's questions.
Okay, questions?
One
Go ahead,
question.
Harold.
One question, Heidi. Reading through this, some of this,
Every word, right?
there's a report.
360 pages.
There's a report that's filed like all up and down the state, a reporting requirement of some kind after we take action. Is that
I don't, are you referring maybe to the notice of determination?
maybe
Sequin notice?
could be?
So that's a one-page notice that for each of the agencies, once you've taken your action, your staff, and we'll assist them, will go and file it over at the county clerk's office. It's posted for 30 days. It's a requirement of state law. Once the 30 days is done, then the notice comes back to you for your files. And it just documents that we've taken these steps this evening. The Conservancy has filed their notice of determination. They did it the day after their action. And we're asking each of the member agencies to do it the day after their action. Do you think that's what it is?
Not quite, but that's okay.
Okay.
It sounded like a SACOG map almost.
I don't know, do you know? I'm sorry, that's not ringing a bell.
Okay.
You must not have read that page.
I can assure you I read every page,
How many times?
many.
I bet Heidi can quote them all.
I bet you can.
Jesse, did you?
Oh, Heidi Shuden, a pleasure to have you in the
Thank you
house,
so much.
and I really appreciate your clarity on the subject.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Anybody else?
Any public comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do that if you guys are ready. Okay, we'll open a public hearing at 7:02. Is there anybody from the audience or the public that would like to speak to this item? Gino, I'm sure you want to know all about it.
I learned a lot.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:02 and a half. I have just a couple of questions if anybody else does. And Heidi, you were talking about all the different steps here with all the different agencies approving this, and it sounds like we're one of the first.
Yes,
And then Davis, and it's still got to go to the county, correct?
yes.
And then
County, and Woodland and West Sacramento.
Okay, and then the state and the federal government.
That's correct.
So once we get all that done, when do you estimate that this will actually be completed and ready to implement?
And Petrea can come up and add, but essentially it's when we get those permits. So there are several other notices and records of decision and all these other things that have to happen at the state and federal level, very similar to this package that you're dealing with tonight for your approvals. Once all that is done and the permits, which are an actual piece of paper, are literally signed and issued, then the implementation begins. And Petrea has been much more involved with the next steps of transitioning the department, or excuse me, the Conservancy. As the executive director, she's transitioning the Conservancy into becoming now an implementing agency for this plan. And we're already doing quite a bit of outreach with the different member agency staff, and we've made it available to John and his staff as well to start to think about how can we help you get ready to implement this at your level with your applicants. And the collection of fees and the issuance of those fees. There's going to be an implementing handbook that's prepared. So there are a lot of activities that will come up to help with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. Do we have an estimate on when that'll be? I mean,
When
are we
the
talking
handbook will be available?
another year and a half, or
No,
sooner? Or
months
how
out.
long do you expect the state and the feds to take? I
June,
guess is
July.
the bottom line.
Exactly.
June, July.
Their deadline, which I don't control, is June, end of June.
Oh wow!
So will the last
This year.
This year, yeah. So the last member agency adopts June 5th,
Okay.
and we actually do have evidence that they are as you are taking action, drafting all the materials that they need on their side, so they're not waiting until all of our action. They have asked me to update them on every single meeting that we have. So I know they are paying attention, very committed. They're under a lot of pressure themselves to deliver these plans. So there's been a couple that have slipped. We've actually moved ahead of Solano, Butte, Placer, and South Sac.
So there's other
So-
counties currently working on a similar
Mhm.
plan, but
Mhm.
nobody else has completed one yet?
Right, so we were neck and neck with South Sac. They released the same day we did for the public review draft, but they are now behind us. So I think the agencies are very intent on finishing this plan so that they can get on to the other plans that are behind us. So I am anticipating, and we will continue to put the pressure on, that it will be no later than July. And I can guarantee you that our board will have something to say about it if they go much beyond that, so.
So this could all be done and in place later this year.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're already having conversations with staff about projects that will be permitted and use our permit in the coming fiscal year. Because most EIS/EIRs have a provision in there that if this plan is in place, they need to mitigate through our plan. So we're trying to get the word out to applicants that there's going to be a change in process and to start training staff and applicants on what the new process is.
Okay. Well, it's good to hear. I mean, that it's not going to take forever to do these things into, I mean, how many years has it been already? So that's why
I
I'm
think he was
surprised.
in the 4th grade.
Yeah, we started a long time ago. Go ahead, Harold.
Follow up to my previous question. I'm quoting from page 505 from the city resolution. And it talks about providing, certified final EIR as a public record and provide a copy to each responsible agency identified in the EIR. And this is the part. And to counties of Calusa, Sutter, Sacramento, Solano, Napa, and Lake, and all cities in those counties.
Thank you for clarifying what you were asking. I'm sorry that I didn't
Do
catch
you
on to
remember
that
seeing
before. So that's a CEQA requirement. Anytime you have a project where you have finalized it, you're required to notify all of the jurisdictions that touch your jurisdiction or touch the project's boundaries of the action that you've taken. That action has already been taken by the Conservancy. We took care of all of those requirements as the lead agency, so that is done.
Oh, okay. This seemed rather onerous.
It does, because those are all of the jurisdictions that touch all of Yolo County, so that's why it feels like such a large list.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Jesse.
I want to congratulate you, Petrea, for all this hard work and getting it, across the finish line. And just say that I really appreciate the value of local control, of streamlining the process so people can get, save their money and get their jobs done, and that there's continual local accountability. I think it's an amazing thing that you've done. Thank you. And the whole group, Pierre, all of the board.
It is a good board. Yeah.
It's a good board.
I'm not talking about me. It's the rest of the people.
Bill,
We
did
work
you
hard
have
at this.
Yeah.
a comment?
Do you anticipate any pushback from the state or federal levels on this?
Not at this point. The hard work is done. Like, as you know, the reason why I've been executive director for 6 years now, and we've negotiated every single word in that document, and I mean every single word. We have literally had screens up with the wildlife agency staff and gone through it line by line. And so now that it's complete, they're supportive of it, and I don't anticipate any issues with release. We didn't even have to, just to release the final, we had to go out in the Federal Register with required approval by the U.S. Department of the Interior in Washington, D.C. So we know that our support goes up to that level already. And that's the last action that that D.C. has to take. So now the permits will be issued by the Sacramento office, I think.
Yeah, it's too bad we couldn't include some of those 404 issues in this, but
Well,
I
that's the
understand that.
No, but I will say that what other jurisdictions have done is because it's so time consuming to get these permits, is that they've gotten these permits, and then if they start having 404 problems and they really like the the process under the Endangered Species Act, then they'll go back and they'll do it afterwards. And that's really something that you can evaluate on a case-by-case basis as member agencies. If you continue to run into 404 problems and this isn't enough to help streamline the process a little bit and save you some time, then you can ask the Conservancy to go back and negotiate that permit. But I'm assuming everyone will want to take a breather after this one and just enjoy it for a while.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say.
Put your hand out. Put it out again.
I think Petra and Heidi both deserve a heck of a lot of credit for getting this thing done, because I can remember before you guys were both involved, and like John said, this is resurrected from the dead and an ash pile for sure, because it was nothing but a gross mess of spending lots of money and nobody wanted anything to do with it. Especially Bruce Goulden. But yeah, thank you.
And I would really be remiss if I didn't. I know I'm always up in front of you and Heidi's in front of you, but what the board had to do the first year and a half, because you heard reports. And then it's also been a lot of work since then. And we have a great team behind us, and not only the Conservancy staff, but member agency staff, planning directors, liaisons, they've all had to come along with us. It's been a lot of work for everyone. So please know that when you're looking at me, it's a much larger group that deserves credit for this.
Thank you. Okay. If there's no other questions or concerns, we can entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. Okay. I move that the council approves the recommendations of the staff as listed in the 7 items on pages 87 and 88 of our agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further comment, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have fun in Davis. It won't be this easy.
Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, next up, Police Department presentation. Chief Miller. As long as it doesn't come with 360 pages of reading material, you're welcome.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council Member, City Manager, members of the community of Winters. Here to do my 5th and final presentation to you.
Of this fiscal year.
Final.
Final.
Well, for on my schedule until next year. I can't keep coming with topics here. What I'm going to present to you tonight, I'm sorry, I'm not going to shoot guns and tasers like the city manager wants, I know. But I wanted to bring up a very critical topic for law enforcement right now and bring some information to your attention. Recruitment retention is an issue in law enforcement. Right now, it is actually a huge issue. I want to call it almost a crisis right now. And this is not unusual for law enforcement to go through peaks and valleys, basically as the economy goes through peaks and valleys. Right now, we are in a serious issue with the economy booming, supply and demand of police officer candidates, and some of the stuff I'll tell you. And I'm talking about qualified candidates. Not everyone can become a police officer. Colin Kaepernick erroneously and ignorantly stated in August 2016 that it took more training to become a hair stylist than to become a police officer. Anyone remembers that? It'll be a great sound bite on TV, but it was absolutely false. In regards to like the initial police academy, well, maybe so. I mean, if you want to call that all their training, but that's just the initial training. It's also very expensive. Recruitment retention is very expensive. I'm going to go over the costs of what it takes to hire a police officer, equip a police officer, and then, like I said, just get an idea of the training. And every time we suffer attrition, it costs this agency quite a bit. Last year, we suffered 20% attrition. Okay? That was only 2 officers. Every single one of my officers is 10%. Now, an agency size of Vacaville or Fairfield, that would be 20 officers, but it impacts us exactly the same, just trying to fill those 2 slots. So we like I said, every single one of our officers is very valuable in many different ways to the city of Winters. So what it takes to become a police officer and how much it costs and why. Okay, so first of all, the California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, which is called POST, establishes the minimum standards. These are just the minimum standards. So free of any felony convictions, that's kind of a good thing. Citizen of the United States or permanent resident alien, CHP officers must be U.S. citizens at their time of appointment. And we have several people that work for our agency that are naturalized U.S. citizens, at least 18 years of age. Now, that's kind of a fallacy. Truthfully, we don't even consider you unless you're 21. I know of no agency in the state of California that still hires anyone at age 18. Maybe some small, if we're not small, podunk enough, but maybe some small agency up in the north, still will hire somebody at 18 years old. Truthfully, we're looking for candidates more like 24 to 25 years old because of the maturity level. As you may know, the brain does, even at 21 years old, is still developing, okay, and it doesn't come to full maturity until 24 to 25 years old. And 21-year-old cops tend to make very bad decisions. Obviously, fingerprinting, good moral character through a background investigation, which I'll talk a little bit more. They must be a high school graduate or have their GED. However, most agencies require at least 60 college units. Some agencies require a bachelor's degree. There's one agency down in Contra Costa County that requires a bachelor's degree, and 80% of the department have master's degrees. All right. Here at Winters, we do not require that. We just do with the high school graduation. I knew I was going to do that. There it is. Okay. So under Penal Code Section 13510, POST is given the authority to establish the minimum selection standards, and candidates must meet the minimum selection standards, okay, and the testing processes. Now, the testing processes are, they have to pass a reading and writing ability assessment. Okay, that's usually done in the academy, so we call it T-score. So even before they attend the academy, they have to pass this reading and writing minimal test. They have to go through an oral interview. They have to do a background investigation. Now, the background investigation is extremely thorough. It is somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 pages long, the packet you have to fill out. I mean, it goes back into every detail of your life, okay? And any error has to be accounted for, even if it was just an innocent error. And lying on it, being caught lying on it, it is absolutely automatic disqualification right there. Medical evaluation, just your typical medical evaluation at a doctor's office, as well as in a psychological evaluation. All right, other individual department hirings or requirements to hire, they're given to the department under POST. They are able to do what's called physical ability testing. In other words, a physical agility test. Oftentimes it's used more just as a screening tool. Like Vacaville right now had 300 applicants recently for some positions down there. And we're talking for entry, which are people who do have no experience whatsoever, academy grads, and then the laterals. Obviously, they want laterals. They want police officers who already have the training, right, past background first. Academy grads, they're up next because they've gone through the academy, and the risk of sending through the academy as well as the cost is already taken care of. Entry is obviously the most risk and expensive people. So they had all these applicants, and they had to screen it, so they had a physical ability test. It's push-ups, and actually every department can do whatever they want to as long as it's work specific. We don't do that. Drug screen, we do that as part of our medical evaluation. Polygraph exam or computer voice stress analyzer, which is called the CVSA. And we do the CVSA here. CVSA is actually, or poly is very important because it helps confirm the information contained in the background packet, right? If they weren't, challenged on it or potentially get caught lying, then everyone would, I should say everyone, but a lot of people would definitely not. And it catches a lot of people, I'll be honest with you, because people are embarrassed or they think, well, that's going to be a disqualification, so they don't put it in. Well, we don't care what you did. I mean, it's a matter of being honest, right? Because when you hit the street to this job, we need to be honest regardless of what happened. And then a personality test, which I've done a couple of different type of tests, and they run the gamut from computer to what was called a BPAT. It was really weird. You had to talk to a DV screen while cameras pointing at you. act like the TV is talking back to you. And I'm like, isn't that kind of crazy in itself? But some shrink developed it and said it is what it is. It's important to note though that failures in the background or their psych or their poly CVSA permanently taints the candidate from that point forward. All right, that is a mark in their character basically, or a potential issue. Now the psychological can vary. It depends on the agency and what the agency standards are, or what the agency is looking for. And also the psych can change over time. Like I said, a 21-year-old taking the psych may not show the maturity, but 3 years later at 24, he may display the maturity that the psychologist is looking for. But definitely lying in your background, or like I said, getting caught lying on the poly, you're done, you're toast. You just don't stop applying right there, all right? You're going to have to find an agency that's very desperate to hire you. So the total cost of hiring somebody here at the Winters Police Department is $2,449 or more. And that's considering that it was a baseline simple background packet, all right, which costs $1,500 right there. That's just your simple one. You just hope that they pass.
Who's that get paid to?
I'm sorry?
Who's that get paid to?
We contract for an outside background investigator. Rather than, because
so it's an outside agency that does that.
The contractor, right? Retired police officer that does it. So,
okay.
Yeah, like I said, that you hope they pass, because if they get through the background, but they get caught in the CVSA, you still write that check, for both the background and the CVSA. So, and then the psych, and so on. So that's just like I said, the bare minimum just to get through the hiring process. So equipping a new officer, you have to give them a duty belt, their firearms, which are pistol, and now a long gun, either a rifle or a shotgun. Taser, tasers alone run $1,100. Body cameras, as you guys just approved, you know that body cameras are expensive as well. Miscellaneous equipment, including their badge, flashlight, rain gear, exterior vest cover, ballistic helmet, just all their personal gear we provide. Their ballistic vest we also provide. They run about $1,200. We're reimbursed about $800 through what's called the Ballistic Vest Partnership through the Department of Justice. And the portable radios that we carry are $8,000 each. Okay. Thankfully, they're paid through a Department of Homeland Security grant.
That's the radios you wear on you?
Yeah, those portable radios. So not the little black old ones, but the new fancy longer ones with the antenna that, it's like literally, yeah, because they're a dual band, GPS enabled, cross communication. It's interoperability post 9/11 that we've been trying to move towards for almost the last 20 years now, and the radios are almost fully cross compatible. So total equipment is about $7,100. That's also some variable. That does not include the portable radio, their cost of their patrol cars that we got to put them in, and all the other stuff. That's just the individual personal equipment for each individual officer. So we're already $10,000 into hiring an officer. Okay?
Plus the radio.
Yeah, well, like I said, Department of Homeland Security. Okay, so and that's also talking like an academy grad. We have not hired any entry-level folks, at least in my experience here, because the cost. That would be a body on our roster that we would not see for 6 months. So to even get hired here at the Winters Police Department, they've already had to complete the academy. Now, the academy is physically and mentally challenging. You do PT throughout it. You do have to pass physical as well as technical tests like defense tactics and shooting, and things like that, as well as a bunch of tests that I'll get into. Minimum is 664 hours according to Post. No academy in the state of California does 664 hours. All do at least 200 hours more than that, totaling 24 weeks in the academy. And this is what we call intensive format, where you're going to the academy 40 hours a week. Most and some academies are over 1,000 hours now, which is 28 weeks. There's another format where, if like you're a working adult, you can go to what's called the extended format academy, where you go nights and you go to like you work all day, and then you go to the academy for 4 hours a night and all day Saturday. And that takes over 1.5 years to get through. All right, it takes a lot of commitment to get through that. During the academy, you're obviously evaluated daily on your discipline, your attitude, maturity, and teamwork, and you're ranked on your performance. The academy has what are called learning domains, and these are the minimum learning domains. There are 43 separate learning domains that every cadet has to go through and pass successfully these tests. When I was teaching the academy, it was I want to say it was 80% was minimum pass, and then there's a couple, like I taught LD20, use of force, that was a 90%. You had to score 90% or more on that test, written test to pass. And there's a couple of that are 90%. So to get through the academy, and this is the cost of NAPA, if you're self-sponsored, in other words, you're putting yourself through the academy, it costs $3,725. Okay, and that's just the tuition to the academy. If you're agency sponsored, $2,725. That's because Post reimburses the agency $1,000 for what's called EVOC, which is Emergency Vehicle Operations Course. So when they get to go up on the skid pan and chase each other around and stuff like that. So that's why the difference in cost. It's the agency absorbs that cost and is reimbursed. If they are agency sponsored, you're absorbing their wages, their benefits, and possibly per diem if you're sending them away to the academy. When I got hired at Vacaville, we hired 2 cadets at the same time who had not been through the academy. I was in the academy at the time. And we sent them to Santa Rosa, so they had to put them up in a hotel, pay them food, basically for 24, back then it was 22 weeks. So 22 weeks. One of them broke their legs in the academy. And this is what I mean by costs also. So the agency, let them heal up. They sent them back to the academy, passed the academy, and then he failed out the FTO, which is field training. So like I said, huge investment. And that he never could actually pursue law enforcement after. He just was not cut out for it, to be honest with you. So the field training program, I just mentioned that. Per post, it has to be a minimum of 400 hours, but again, that's the minimum. Most agencies, including Winters Police Department, 16 to 20 weeks in field training. You are with usually up to 4 different FTOs. Here at Winters, you're up with 3, just due to our size. We use what they're called a phase system. So phase 1, each phase is about 4 weeks long. We aim for about a 16-week program here. You're with your primary FTO. By the end of that, you're expected to be 25% efficient, basically as a solo functioning officer. In phase 2, you have a second FTO to confirm. Like I said, we want multiple evaluations from different perspectives and different criteria, right, during day shift, during night shift. 50%, phase 3, 75, and then finally phase 4, you go back to your primary FTO who got you as a new officer who gets to see how much you've developed, and then he does the 4th phase as well as what's called shadow phase, where he dresses in plain clothes and just stands there and observes. You're not to turn to him and ask him any questions. You're expected to be 100% solo functioning officer by that time. Okay? And then you have a probationary period, which is 12 to 18 months here at the Winters Police Department. For a entry-level officer, it's 18 months. So you're still evaluated every 4 months. So you're still being constantly evaluated as a solo performing officer. Lateral, we do 12 months. All right. So after you pass all of that, you get through FTO and you're running out there by yourself. You still have training coming. Okay. Post-continuing professional training, CPT, is mandated. You have to do 24 hours. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but we're going to get into that. This is the minimum requirement by the state. 24 hours of continuing CPT in a 2-year cycle. Topics are, new laws. I mean, it's per post, what the topics have to hopefully address. Now, per RMOU, the intent of the city is to provide 40 hours of CPT certified training per year. And that's just to keep our training going, which I said we'll get into in a second. So that's one part of post. The other part of post is the perishable skills program. And that is your arrest and control, your driver training, emergency vehicle operations, and tactical firearms. And again, this is a 2-year period, and they require 12 hours of perishable skills, which I said is bare minimum and absolutely ridiculous when it comes to perishable skills, because perishable skills perish. And adult learning theory is basically they don't have the do it every 3 to 4 months. The skill is at 0 again. But again, minimum requirement. All right, so training equals liability. The number one reason law enforcement gets sued, municipalities get sued, is under 1983 action, civil rights violation, is for failure to train. And that was established in kind of like Miranda was the baseline for rights. The baseline case law was Canton versus Harris. And what it was to show deliberate indifference to train their officers, and decision-making ability is based on that training. And basically the training standards were not up to par. And they got sued and they lost, and I said that established the case law that yes, it is a civil rights violation. $500,000, and that was the most recent I could find is August 2006. The average cost awarded to plaintiffs is $500,000 in these 1983 actions. And then you swallow the attorney fees, by the way. So attorney fees are compensated 100% if your client gets $1. So additional case laws have reinforced that training must be relevant, realistic, and focused on decision making. All right, so like when we're out the range, it's not just shooting a bullseye target. Matter of fact, when I first got here, they were shooting the old classic B-27 target, which is that black silhouette. And I'm like, no. So we do shoot now photorealistic targets, moving and shooting, decision making, shoot and don't shoot targets. We developed and designed, built turning targets. So now the targets will turn towards them, and they have to see if it is a threat and react to that threat, or if it's not a threat and not react to that threat. Right? So that's something that we're building on even here at the Winters Police Department. So ongoing training, I said we're not done yet. Ongoing training for officers are what we call core courses. These are originally, taken over their first 3 to 5 years. It does count towards their CPT credits, but they have to get through rifle, radar, DUI, interview interrogation, crisis intervention training, 11550, which is under the influence of narcotics, and basic traffic investigation. That's the core courses. They also have to go to range training, which is quarterly. We instituted monthly roll call training, again, about the perishable skills, where we do go over defense tactics, active shooter. They do post-learning portal, which is a computer-based program to do legal updates and things like that. Required for supervisors is sexual harassment every 2 years, elder and dependent adult abuse, and high technology crimes. They also do daily training bulletins through our Lexipol or policy manual. Since it's a computerized program, they have daily training bulletins that they have to do and have to read, and you take like a little test at the end, like true or false or multiple choice, to show that you did, in fact, read the material. Required every 1 to 5 years. For all police officers, you have to go do domestic violence, racial profiling, mental health, high-speed vehicle pursuits, respiratory protection and fitting, first aid, CPR, and bloodborne pathogens. And then if you're an instructor, you have to recertify, like tasers every 2 years. There are firearms and defense tactics updates. No dates are established on that, but you have to go to the updates, again, to show that your training is relevant, realistic, and up to date. And then FTOs have to update every 3 years. So through all this stuff, we earn what are called professional certificates. Your basic certificate is awarded after you complete FTO and your probation. Now that basic certificate is your golden ticket to get hired and be a lateral. You're now a lateral. So once they hit that, 18 months here, they're marketable. I mean, they can go to another agency.
And that's usually when they do.
Well, that's what we're trying hopefully, again, to have, to hold on to these folks. But then we earn their intermediate, and this is in advance, and that's based upon their level of experience in education. Moving on, as a supervisor, you earn your supervisor certificate after being a supervisor for 2 years. Then if you bump to lieutenant or captain or commander level, you're eligible for your management certificate after 2 years. And then finally, the executive certificate, which is for heads of agencies, chiefs of police or sheriffs, and that's after being in that position for 2 years. It doesn't have the same requirements as the basic, intermediate, and advanced. And we do have education incentives here, as do most departments, obviously, because we want them to get their higher education. We want them to continue to expand themselves. So a lot of questions, and almost everyone on my city council, well, why not just hire reserves? They're a lot cheaper. Well, they used to be. My little note there, prior to SB 1874 and 1994, basically they have to have the same hiring and training requirements. Now, prior, they only required 236 hours of training at Martinez Adult School. It was a fine, higher, educational institute. That's where I went, and I was a 6-gun carrying deputy after 236 hours of training at Martinez Adult School as a reserve deputy. So, yeah, quality right there. But reserves now unopposed, and this is ridiculous, they're not required to do their perishable skills program. However, because they're not full-time officers, their skills perish even quicker. And you are just absolutely stupid if you don't require them to attend that same mandatory training. Because you're putting out there in a uniform and a gun, doing the job. So the liability for jurisdictions is just outlandish. I mean, you just don't want them out there. So reserves do not get their basic, intermediate, or advanced certificates, but they do get a reserve officer certificate from post. All right, so these are agencies that are currently hiring in the state of California. I went to the Post website, I cut and pasted, then I went and I edited through. So this does not include all the management, supervisory positions, dispatch, support, investigative, reserve, part-time. And if the agencies were looking for laterals, entries, academies, or recruits, I just included them once. 221 total city, counties, and other agencies. All right, in November of 2011, there were 8 on the website. Okay, and that's the list continuing. So that's what we're, and that's just the ones that advertise on. That's just the ones that advertise on Post also that that get on the website and say they're hiring. All right, like we didn't. No, we didn't for our last recruitment because we had somebody in the hopper. So we didn't need to get on there. So there could be other agencies that are looking, just didn't get on Post website. So this is what we're up against. Competition equals compensation. It's simple Adam Smith economics, right? Supply and demand. And we do have a problem with a limited pool of qualified candidates and the competition with the booming private sector. So this is not what we're seeing, all right? We're seeing these incentives, and this is what we're competing against as we're trying to recruit and retain. Fairfield is up there. Fairfield is probably our closest right now. And Napa, so I'm sorry, is also offering hiring incentives. Palo Alto, $25,000. Why? Because you can't afford to live anywhere near Palo Alto. They've literally put trailers in their back lot as sleep rooms for their officers because they're commuting in, 2 to 4 hours just to come to work. Okay? Fairfield Police Department though is $10,000 hiring bonus. I did not get it, by the way. That was after. It's like I said, agencies are, I don't say becoming desperate. It is robbing Peter to pay Paul. When I was part of the recruitment team at Vallejo, we were doing the same thing. It was driving pay and incentive. We were going off to the academy. If you have a patch on your arm for an agency, we're like, hey, we're trying to recruit you. This is out of PORAC magazine. You can just see, like I said, what is out there right now. These are all the agencies. If you notice, many of them are doing their $10,000 lateral signing bonus, $5,000 for Napa County, and so on and so on. That's another page, same thing. Another page of the same thing. Any questions?
So what are we doing to help retain the officers we have?
Very good question. Believe it or not, pay is not one of the driving human motivation factors. Really delve into the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs and McGregor's theories and stuff like that. It definitely is a driving factor, though, especially when folks are, they're buying boats and RVs and, and hey, look at my paycheck. But one of the biggest things is, especially the Winters Police Department, is trying to create opportunities for them. Okay, that's why training opportunities are very important. That self-development, or as Maslow would say, self-actualization, where you're improving yourself. So we're trying to create those opportunities. As well as specialized jobs like the bicycle patrol. We recently have an officer on the county CNT, crisis negotiation team, cost negotiation team, trying to get folks for in-house expertise, off to instructor courses, just things like that. Me personally, letting them know that they're valued, and they are. That this community values them. I've seen and I've worked, unfortunately, in a community that did not value its officers. I got paid a lot of money. I got paid a lot of money, but especially with my overtime.
Yeah.
But it was not. At the end of the day, that's not. What we did. We weren't even a band-aid on the situation. We definitely were not valued.
So I know we have a few officers who've been here for quite a long time. What's about the average of length of stay of our officers right now?
We don't have an average for you.
Yes.
The city manager probably could speak better to that.
Yeah.
Again, it comes to the peaks and valleys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. Right now we do have officers that are looking, but not actively looking. Because I said, and I can't blame them.
Yeah.
Can't blame them. And I just say, what I tell them? I said, do your homework. Don't run from something, run to something. Okay. And a lot of agencies are, like I said, often hiring bonuses, usually for a reason. It's because they're probably not a great agency to work at. They're not getting that probably the most desirable agency right now is Vacaville Police Department, to be honest with you. And it wasn't desirable when I worked there. We were having a recruitment retention issue there. But now it truly is. Agencies are getting peaks and valleys.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, a lot of folks are looking at that agency. Well, why are they able to recruit without even advertising, and then their neighboring agencies having to offer $10,000 hiring bonus? So it's very difficult to say. The average I can tell you right now, this generation is, I want to say I most recently read it was 3 to 4 agencies in their career. And I'm not by design, I'm one of those, just because of a city going bankrupt, a city wanting to dissolve their police department. But things meant to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, if I may add just a little bit, you try and create a good organization, and it's supportive of the people that work there, and that's one of the key things that I've really tried to emphasize to Chief Miller. During the time that the chief has been here, we have really focused on trying to create opportunity for folks. For many people, it's not entirely about the paycheck. It's about the ability to come and work in a place where they are accepted, that they feel good about the community. Winters inherently is a very safe community. After a while, the adrenaline wears off, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. But the reality is that Winters is a very nice place. And, but, you go down to even some of the places where the chief has worked. If you want to drive around with your hair on fire all day, go down and work in Vallejo or Richmond or Oakland, in those places. A much different environment, much different stress that they have on them. Unquestionably, Winters, we don't pay what other places make. You can go to work for some of these younger officers. They can go and work for some places where they will make hundreds of thousands of dollars working there, working overtime. They can go and, if you... the SACB always has that great article where they talk about the highest paid people, and it's always a police sergeant and a couple of firefighters that are making $250,000 to $300,000 because that's all they do. They work.
Corporal Vallejo made $300,000 a year.
Yeah, but. It's one of the things that we've really emphasized as Nancy and I have tried to do our best. Now the turnover, some of it is just, they've come here. We provide outstanding training and people move on. They just do. And that's just a fact of life. But if you look at the preponderance of our staff, we probably have 20% attrition every couple of years. We just have to realize that. But that means that we've got probably 80% of our experience staying around here. But it's not easy. I'd love to have the money that Palo Alto has to deal with that problem, but we just don't. So it really is quality of the environment that you have.
Our candidates, we actually, we were very fortunate last time how we didn't advertise. I simply went to my folks and I said, do you know anybody that wants to work here? And it's people, because they talk. They talk amongst themselves, and that's also sometimes goes against us. We got a couple folks down at Vacaville now who are like, man, come on.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's been tempting to some of our guys. But likewise, when we went through our last recruitment, they were aware of some very promising candidates. And that personal recommendation, if you will, goes a long way with me. So, and we were able to, very fortunately hired two, I think, very good candidates, which was Officer Ross and Officer Coyo.
Jesse, you had something?
I think you kind of answered it. I was going to ask, what can we do aside from pay to, keep people here? Because, we really appreciate our police staff and the outreach that you do in the community and the actual job that you do. But I like that you play basketball with the kids and go visit them and have ice cream with the cop and all that stuff. But, is there anything more that we can do?
We're very fortunate. Obviously the environment that they work in, their equipment that they have is very important.
Like the new cameras.
But our locker room flooded with sewage twice a year. There were bullet holes in the lockers. The building was just condemned because of lead and asbestos. Okay, but the chief said, he goes, but that's why I have nice patrol cars for you.
That's not us.
Yeah.
It's
Is that Vallejo? Yeah.
That was Vallejo,
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
No, yes.
Not to bust out Vallejo,
Definitely
but-
not our public safety facility.
Yeah, it's a nice facility. You guys have a nice facility.
Yeah, and so that definitely does contribute to, like I said, that overall satisfaction. Being a high quality agency also, I think, goes a long way. And that's why I wanted to shore up our uniforms, which goes into full implementation on July 1.
The new vest,
the
new camera.
uniform specs,
Yeah.
and everything on them, so that we're uniform, hence the term uniform. But that sense of professionalism, I think goes a long way.
Yeah.
That self-actualization, as Marilyn would say, right? You're just doing it to become a better person. It's not the safety and security. I can't say right now safety and security in their jobs is certainly important.
Right.
Again, we lost 50% of our agency in Vallejo. Your job, even if I've been there for 10 years, my job wasn't secure. And that goes a long way. So that's why our also try to ensure that as we're going through our budget cycle, say, we're on a flat budget, but okay, your job's not threatened.
Do most of our officers live in town?
No, we only have one officer who lives in town.
Okay. Second question, do they want to live in town?
I will be honest with you. Do they want to? Yes. Is it necessarily the wise idea? It's not. I moved to Vacaville after I started working there, and that was the biggest mistake I ever made. Biggest mistake I ever made. I was patrolling. I was driving the same streets I'm patrolling. Okay. I'm in the supermarket, and I always would put a baseball cap on after work. I always carried a gun. Okay, because I was in the same darn community. I go through the a couple funny stories. I'm going through the drive-through with my kids, and they go, literally, they're going to go, "Hey, aren't you that cop with a dog?" A canine. And I'm like, "Oh, great. Can I get some extra spit in that burger now?" Okay, I'm in the supermarket. Literally, one time, domestic violence night before, I arrested her husband. And again, here I am with a baseball cap, and as we pass in the aisle, she's looking at me like, "I know you from somewhere." And I'm like, "I know exactly where I know you from." There was never that separation. One time I had a canine, so I had a take-home car. Now, a lot of agencies have take-home cars, but mine was always in the garage. It nuts me up why guys park in front of their houses. It's just like, what are you doing? But I pulled it out because I was doing yard work, and I think I was taking a break and knocking on my door, not even thinking, because we call it condition green, right? I'm just living, or condition white, living my life, right? Not even thinking like a cop. I'm in my own home. Cops always are in what we call condition yellow, kind of hypervigilance. And I just open the door and immediately, "Are you the cop that lives here?" I'm thinking, the gun is in the closet in the locker. How am I going to get to it in time? That's the first thing going through my mind.
You didn't say, "No, it's my wife."
And, he goes, "Oh, there's an accident out there on Leisure Town Road." I'm like, "Okay, 911, but, and I thankfully I live on a cul-de-sac. I'm in the cul-de-sac and stuff like that, so I think it was avoided. But it's uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. And then if you can imagine your kids, okay, your kids have to go through. You have to go break up the teenage party, and you're a snitch. Your dad's the cop. It's bad. It's just there's one of my biggest things, especially as a canine SWAT officer, was I had my call-out uniform hanging right there next to my next to my bed. And I hear sirens in the middle of the night, kind of be like, "Here comes the call," and there was never that separation. And you need that separation. Just that little drive down the freeway, just changes your perspective.
Thank you. I thought that might be the case, but
And a lot of people want that, that we are part of the community. I mean, by every definition, we're part of the community. Okay, but just in a different way.
Is there anybody from the audience who would like to comment? Gino, you want to sign up or?
No, I like it when the police officer brings his car home and parks across the street. But now I understand why.
Sure.
So how many police officers does Winters have? And then also, do you guys have any, I have a young son who's only 14 and he's might be interested in law enforcement. So is there any like academy for youth or any opportunities to tour your facility or anything like that?
We have 11 full-time officers, that includes myself. So we have 10 officers. We do have one assigned as a detective now. So basically 9 officers assigned to patrol 24/7. We have a cadet program for youth. Okay. I think it's 16 is the age. But that's Officer Alan Bennett who's running that program. The program just started last year. Near and dear to me, that's how I started. I started off as cadet also.
And then if it's not too much to ask, what's the average starting salary after all that training that they have to go through? And are they paid during the academy or they're not making any money?
It depends. If they're self-sponsored, it means you have taken the time off work. Like I started self-sponsored, but I was hired in the academy. So I had to save up my money and, just take a shot at it. So you're not getting paid as self-sponsored. If you're agency-sponsored, then yes, you are getting paid. Usually what they call a trainee wage, so not like full police officer, but you are covered under workers' compensation and things like that. Starting salary, Nancy would know better. She's in negotiations for entry level, bottom line, officer of 65 per month.
It's
about.
Well, yeah. It's 5,000 to 6,000 a month.
To round it off, it's about $70,000 starting.
A year.
So it's,
Yeah.
It's pretty low. If I can share a story going back 2 years when I signed on to come here, I kind of snickered and city manager asked me what, and I said, well, I got paid more as a sergeant 10 years ago in the city of Ohio than I was chief of police. But again, it's valuable.
We're not having that conversation with John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
Yeah, it's not about salary. I'm doing something I feel strongly about. I feel very good about. So, as long as I can pay my bills.
There you go. All right. Anybody got anything else? Okay. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
It's always an
Do we
education.
get to go shoot the gun now, or no?
Let's go to that parking lot.
Yeah,
We're still waiting for that one.
we don't shoot the gun. There it goes.
Okay, our other presentation, Sacuola mosquito and vector. Liz Robles.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me again.
Welcome back.
I will be brief since I know we're probably all tired.
No.
On
And
the
you
side.
guys have heard me before, but it's always a pleasure to be here. So, what's new in the mosquito world? Actually, thankfully, not that much. It's still a little bit too early to tell what kind of mosquito season it's going to be. But it's always nice to be able to come back here and give you guys an update as to what we faced last year and any predictions for this upcoming season.
It's on the side. On the side.
There you go.
I remember I was having issues last year. There we go. All right. Oh. Yeah. Sorry. All right. There you go. So as you know, we're the local agency that provides mosquito vector control services to all of Sacramento and Yolo County. We service about more than 2,000 square miles, and we provide services to almost 1 million residents with both urban and agricultural areas.
Down.
Yeah,
There
okay.
you go.
Mosquitoes come from different types of habitats. As you know, mosquitoes breed in water, but different types of habitats breed different types of mosquitoes. In California, we have about 50 different species of mosquitoes. Sacramento and Yolo County has about 23 different species that come out at different times of the year. Worldwide, we have over 3,500 different species of mosquitoes, and mosquitoes are actually the #1 insect or #1 killer. Mosquitoes kill more people than many other diseases combined. Approximately 1 million people die each year of mosquito-related diseases, primarily due to malaria. Backyard sources are
Mm.
probably our number one worry because we know where the creeks are, where the rice fields are, any of the big areas where mosquitoes would be growing, but it's backyard sources. And a lot of times people don't think about maybe the small flower pot or the dog dish or maybe their dirty fountain or dirty bird bath, but there's some species of mosquitoes that can actually grow in a teaspoon of water, believe it or not. Luckily, those are the mosquitoes that we don't have here currently, but they are already well established in California. Those are what we call the invasive mosquito species, the ones that are able to transmit Zika, dengue, and chikungunya. Those mosquitoes we don't have here, but those are aggressive day-biting mosquitoes that can breed in a teaspoon of water. The rest of the mosquitoes, we always tell people that it's important to make sure that at least once a week they're draining their water, making sure that they don't have any area where mosquitoes can grow, because anything that holds water for more than a few days can and will become a mosquito breeding source. So it's important that at least once a week people go around their yard and inspect it. We have what we call an integrated mosquito pest management approach, where we use many different tactics, specifically, or the most important one being our surveillance program. We're a laboratory. We're one of the largest mosquito control districts in the state and actually in the country as well. We have 75 full-time employees, both an office in Woodland and then our main office in Elk Grove. But our surveillance usually starts, we're always on the lookout for mosquitoes, but now that we're kind of starting in the summer months, our surveillance program starts with people reporting dead birds. So dead birds such as jays, crows, magpies, house finches, those are the birds that are most susceptible to West Nile virus. So when people find a dead bird, we'd like for them to report it, and then we would come collect that bird and then we test it for West Nile virus. If it tests positive, then we set up traps around a 1 mile radius of where that bird was found, and then we collect mosquitoes and we test those mosquitoes. So if those test positive, then we do additional testing. So lo and behold, we usually get what we call like a hotspot of mosquitoes developing in a certain area, and that's how we know where and how we need to respond. If we have a lot of widespread activity, that's when we might do the backpack fogging, the truck fogging, or even the airplane fogging. It just depends on what it is that we're finding, but that's how we figure out where we need to concentrate our efforts based on the scientific results and data collected by our laboratory. I think a lot of times people don't really understand how scientific mosquito control is, or they think that it's a kind of a willy-nilly operation, and that's one of the things that I always like to reinforce, that everything we do is based in science. We work very closely with the California Department of Public Health, California Department of Pesticide Regulation, and EPA. Just we do not work in a vacuum by ourselves, because we know that the work that we do can have many implications to the residents that we serve. Earlier I heard you guys say to the other ladies, like, good luck in Davis, with their project, and that's kind of like, what I get told as well. So, depending on the community that you're in, it could be, some people are begging for us to come and spray because they have a lot of mosquitoes. And then, of course, as we know, some other communities are not as keen with that idea. So, again, our goal is to try and control mosquitoes when they're in the water. 90% of the work that we do is control mosquitoes in the water. It's what we prefer to do. But once mosquitoes are adults and they're flying around and we know that they're infected with West Nile virus, then the only way that we can actually kill them is with, doing our adulticide or our spraying program. So the diseases that mosquitoes carry, the most common ones, as I said, they're listed up there. The most common one continues to be West Nile virus. Last year in California, we had 536 confirmed human cases of West Nile virus, including 44 fatalities. So for people that think that West Nile virus is an old disease that nobody cares about, or that it's never happens to anybody, 536 human cases or 44 fatalities, I would say, is pretty significant. And the Centers for Disease Control estimates that for every confirmed case, that there's actually 30 to 70 cases that go unconfirmed. So, potentially we actually had, instead of, even though 536 were the only ones that were confirmed, we had potentially 12 to 27,000 people that had West Nile virus. So it's one of those diseases that I think a lot of people, because 80% of people that have it don't even know it, and only 20% of people develop the what we call the West Nile virus fever, that includes the headaches, the fatigue, the swollen lymph nodes, the very like the feverish type of feeling, and then only 1 in 150 people develop the very severe neuroinvasive form of the disease. I think a lot of people still think that it's a something that's only happens to the elderly, which is not the case. When in reality it can happen to anybody. So primarily it does affect the elderly and the very young, but you can be bitten by a mosquito and be infected at any time. All right, so luckily here in Winters last year, we did not have any West Nile virus activity, where you can see that in the surrounding areas of Woodland and Davis we did. And this can change from year to year, just like we didn't have anything last year in 2017. The previous year in 2016, we did have a lot of West Nile virus activity around Pewter Creek. So I don't know what's going to happen this year. We've already started our testing of the birds and mosquitoes, and so far we haven't found anything. But that's not unusual. It's still very early in the mosquito season. We haven't really had those very steady warm temperatures over an extended period of time. But I presume that come June, that's when we're going to definitely start to pick up the pace. We don't know what 2018 is going to bring, but we do know that we did have a very wet spring. We had a lot of late rainstorms, so that kind of gives mosquitoes a head start, which is unfortunate because especially when you have late spring rains followed by very warm temperatures, which we did see. There was a couple of times when we had it rained, and then by the end of the week it was like 80 degrees. A couple of weeks ago we had the little warm spell. That kind of creates a perfect combination for mosquitoes to thrive. So, based on that, we can kind of tell that it's going to be a busy season, but we still don't know what to expect fully. As we said, the invasive mosquito species are still an issue and a concern for us. We don't have them within our 2 counties yet, but they are very well established in other parts of the state. The closest to us being Madera, Fresno, and then all of Southern California. These mosquitoes are very well established, and all it would take really for us to have those mosquitoes here would be for somebody from any of those areas to move to Sacramento or anywhere in Yolo County, bring their potted plants, bring their outdoor furniture, or anything that's holding water, because what makes those mosquitoes different is the fact that their eggs can be dormant for up to 6 months, so they can be in a dry, desiccated form, just waiting to be filled with water, and then they'll just hatch. So once those mosquitoes are established, they're very difficult to eradicate, and technically that's all it would take, for us to get those. And then especially now with all of the worldly travels that everybody does, it's very easy for us to be here today, and then 72 hours from now we'll be in Africa or vice versa, and that's really what helps to transfer diseases from one place to another. What can you do? These are our basic tips, mosquito prevention tips. That draining the water is always going to be our number one recommendation. Drain that stagnant water where mosquitoes can breathe. Avoid being outside at dawn and dusk, because that's when mosquitoes are most active. Dressing protectively in long sleeves and pants, or defending yourself with some good mosquito repellent. I think I overheard you guys saying something about having an elderly day. We'd be happy to provide materials, repellent for any of the outreach activities that the police officers are going to be doing, like National Night Out, Earthquake Festival. We had our booth here at Youth Day. We're always trying to do our outreach and education to the public, because we want them to be to stay safe from mosquitoes. So again, calling the district for any mosquito-related problems. That's what we encourage people to do. Basically all of our services are free because the residents pay for them when they pay for their property taxes. So about $12 per household goes to fund our district. So if somebody's having issues with mosquitoes around their house, all they have to do is just give us a call. Somebody will come out to conduct a free inspection. We also provide free mosquito fish, free presentations, the free mosquito repellent. So always trying to go, get to where the people are to be able to spread our messages. So with that, that's the end of my presentation, unless you guys have any questions.
I have a question. Do you do any aerial surveillance looking for green swimming pools, that type of thing?
We actually do. I mean, last year I don't think that we did it, but in 2016 we did do. We contracted with an aerial services agency, and I know that we're going to do it again. Where I want to say that in 2016 we did 6-mile radius around the Arden Arcade area of Sacramento, and we found within that 6-7 mile radius we found over 600 green swimming pools. Believe it or not.
Wow.
Wow. So, that actually correlated, that year with where we were finding all of the West Nile virus activity. And when you think about the fact that one neglected swimming pool can actually produce about 1 million mosquitoes over the course of a summer, and those mosquitoes can fly 1 to 5 miles and infect entire neighborhoods, that's a very serious situation. And I think a lot of times too, people don't realize that, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna let my pool go. It doesn't matter. I'm the one that has to look at it. I can't swim. But they're actually creating a public health nuisance, and that's where we come in. If people are able to report their neighbors anonymously. So if somebody reports a neglected pool, we would go out there, knock on the door. If they let us in, we add mosquito fish to the pool because it's not our job to clean the pool or drink the water or anything like that. We just need to make sure that it's not producing mosquitoes. But if they let us in to add fish to the pool, then that's the end of the story. Then we mark it as a source, and every so often we come back to make sure that the fish are thriving. But if they don't allow us in their home, then we have the power to take them to court and evict them and charge them a $1,000 fine per day. Usually when it doesn't get to that point, but it has gotten, with some people. I've been with the agency for 10 years, and I've seen a few court cases that usually when people hear that they're going to have a $1,000 fine per day, then they usually either decide to cover up the pool, fill it with dirt, or let us put the fish in.
How long does your treatment last? Like if you go in there to a green pool, how long does it last?
Well, the treatment is adding the fish there. Okay. So the fish are always the fish, they help us control the mosquitoes naturally because they feed on the mosquito larvae. So one fish alone can eat between 200 to 300 larvae per day. They're basically self-sufficient. Once we have added fish to the pool, then we go back and check it, every 2 months to make sure that the fish are okay. But usually what happens too is somebody can maybe it's an empty home, and then we go there and we add fish in, but then that house gets sold. Then if they might clean up the pool, or maybe you have an unattending neighbor wanting to come clean up the pool and they throw chlorine in it, then it kills the fish, and then we have to start all over again. But the fish are self-sustaining, and fish are great for rice fields and agricultural areas, for horse troughs, for ponds, fountains, anything that holds water is a good home for the fish.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
One of your previous slides, you had is it called a tiger mosquito? Or?
The Asian tiger mosquito? Mm-hmm.
I saw something recently where the topic was citizen sciences, where they get an app for their phone. Are you familiar with that?
Where they get an app for their phone to kind of
they photograph it and it goes into a
reported
network
database.
Oh, okay. I thought you were referring to an app to keep mosquitoes away, because I've heard of those apps as well. That they emit frequencies and sounds. But I think I have heard about that, where people are able to take pictures with their phone. A lot of the time, sometimes it's the quality isn't quite there. And the best thing that people can do, if they think that they have found one of these mosquitoes, trying to killing it and maybe putting it in a sandwich bag and then having it. They make a report, then they can, when our technicians come, then they can identify it just based on their characteristics, because different mosquitoes have different wing patterns, or they have the stripes, or the Asian tiger or the other, the yellow fever mosquito, they have very specific markings on their thorax, that the general person wouldn't be able to tell just based, for most people, a mosquito's a mosquito. All they do is want to just kill it, right? They don't really care about, what is it or where does it come from. But for us, when somebody makes a report that they're being bothered by mosquitoes, we ask that if they can kill it and keep a sample for our staff, it will help us to figure out where they're coming from. Because the mosquitoes come from catch basins in the street, others come from tree holes, others come from, pastures or rice fields, and depending on the time of the year, you have different kinds of mosquitoes. So it's very helpful for us to be able to identify the type of mosquito, and that will tell us where it's breeding.
Thank you.
I want to invite you to Winners on September 29th for the Festival de la Comunidad. It's 4 to 11, and I think that we need some mosquito protection.
Oh, that would be good, yeah.
And carnitas. Don't.
That's a weird and tasty.
Right.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Liz? Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the education. Okay, city manager's report.
Just a couple of items very quickly. Working on coming up with the final version of the parking plan. Sent out an email to everybody in the parking committee today. Throughout a couple of days, and we'll get that together. The goal is to have the overall parking plan to the Planning Commission on at their June 26th meeting. The Economic Committee, I sent out 2 dates to the people on the parking committee. So whichever date they don't pick is the date that we're gonna have the first Economic Development Committee meeting.
I think somebody put out a note already that one of those dates you picked is graduation day.
I know. We'll see. So we might not be doing that. We may kick it to the next week.
Yeah.
We'll see. The mayor mentioned the park dedication tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon. And what a fabulous day. I give them credit. And I think most of the benefactors are going to be there. Obviously, that means probably the tribe's going to be there, but incredible day. This Friday morning at Sac City Hall, the Central Valley Flood Protection Board is going to be holding the permit hearing on both Phase 3 and Naqua. Our friends of Poudre Creek kind of through the kitchen sink type of response to try and stop this. The reality is that this project has to be done in the fall. There's a timeline on it where you don't have birds that you have to deal with. The flows are low enough that it's not going to rain. I think it's a miracle that it's at this point. And I will the council's spoken quite eloquently about it. The city's taken many positions regarding the project. And I will tell you that I will go and speak very forcefully to this group. It's the delays over 4 years that it's taken has cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is an ecological restoration project that literally the people who do it are fawning over. It is an absolutely incredible project. So
will they make a determination on Friday?
That's my understanding, is that it's teed up to get that permit, and if that permit goes, then the Army Corps will release the 404.
And then how soon can the Phase 3 start?
My understanding is that just from a timing standpoint, giving all the bird stuff, nesting, et cetera, probably they'll kick the thing into gear sometime, probably in September. I think they can start moving in at some time, but actual construction and grading and all that stuff isn't going to be able to happen until the activities. But I do plan to go and speak unequivocally, because the reality is that it could be the last year for this. If we might as well go for it respectfully, but very forcefully, stating the position of the city. And that's all I have.
Okay. Well, thank Ashley for
yeah.
coming and sitting in for Ethan and keeping us out of trouble tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And with that, we'll close the meeting at 8:13.
Ashley, you can text Ethan and go done.
I know. He has a long night.
We're expecting a lawsuit to be filed. Restraining orders.
No, do you know what I think?